So while the South Carolina primary is tomorrow, we're only a few days away from Super Tuesday, where over 1/3 of all the delegates will be allocated. And according to a couple new polls that dropped just today, Bernie Sanders could be poised to absolutely dominate Super Tuesday. In a new poll by CNN, they focused on California and Texas, the two largest and most important Super Tuesday states. And Bernie's dominating in both. In California, Bernie is leading by 21 points over Elizabeth Warren, and in Texas, he's leading by 9 over Joe Biden. And because these states have a lot of delegates, large leads like that translate into big delegate gaps between Bernie and the people further down the list. And in California, especially if that result holds, Bernie could virtually sweep all the delegates. He might not get every single delegate because on a regional basis, some of the other candidates might break the 15% threshold, but he would get almost every statewide delegate, giving Bernie potentially hundreds of delegates more than his competitors in California alone, not to mention other states. And it's those other states that matter too. California and Texas, of course, are the two biggest, but Super Tuesday is about many states, big and small, all over the country. And a new Morning Consult poll has Bernie Sanders doing extremely well generally on Super Tuesday. They asked folks who they supported from those particular states, and Bernie Sanders is at 34%. That is 14 points ahead of Michael Bloomberg in those particular states. Joe Biden is at 17, Elizabeth Warren is at 11, no one else is in the double digits, showing that Bernie Sanders has the potential in the big states on the list, but also overall to rack up a really, really substantive popular vote and delegate lead coming out of Super Tuesday. And this is why the Bloomberg campaign and the Biden campaign and all the other campaigns have been so concerned about Bernie's potential momentum. Because even with a result that's good for Joe Biden in South Carolina, it may well be the case that Bernie Sanders builds an insurmountable lead when it comes to Super Tuesday. It might not guarantee Bernie Sanders a majority of delegates, but it would give Bernie a very, very strong path to a plurality, meaning that no other individual candidate could pass Bernie Sanders in votes, meaning that the only option to take away the nomination from Bernie is to steal it from him with superdelegates and things like that, which would tear the party apart, as we've talked about on this channel. So Bernie Sanders has to be very happy about where he's positioned going into the biggest day on the primary cycle in California and Texas and overall. But another really cool piece of information from this Morning Consult poll surrounds second choice support. And again, I've talked about this before, but second choice support is crucial in breaking some of the narratives about Bernie Sanders, with a lot of the neoliberals saying that the only reason Bernie is winning is that Bloomberg and Biden and Buttigieg and Klobuchar and all the rest are splitting the non-Bernie vote, and that if they want to beat Bernie, it's easy. All but one of them has to drop out. That person will collect all of the non-Bernie vote and they will win, or they will make it close and the superdelegates can give it to them at the convention. But this Morning Consult poll demonstrates that Bernie Sanders is the second choice, not only of Elizabeth Warren voters, which we probably expect, and not only of Joe Biden voters, which was the case in previous Morning Consult polls, but now Pete Buttigieg supporters as well. So among three of the leading candidates, three of the four leading non-Bernie candidates, Bernie is the second choice of all of them. The only person that Bernie Sanders is not the second choice of are Bloomberg supporters. And even there, Bernie Sanders really isn't even doing all that badly. And what that shows is that if Biden drops out, or if Buttigieg drops out, or if Warren drops out, there's no guarantee that that will allow the neoliberal base to sort of congeal around one non-Bernie candidate. Because at the end of the day, and I've been harping on this, Bernie Sanders is the most popular person among the Democratic Party base in this presidential primary. They love Bernie. Even when Bernie's not their first choice, for whatever reason, he's got a very, very positive image among regular Democratic Party voters and members. That's the simple reality. So it's not surprising that while on Twitter and on MSNBC, there's constant harping about how Bernie Sanders doesn't really have any support beyond his narrow base, or that Bernie Sanders is fundamentally separate from the Democratic Party base compared to the other people. When you actually look at what regular people think, the people being polled, they don't see Bernie as fundamentally separate from the rest of the party. They see Bernie Sanders as a perfectly viable first and or second choice in terms of the nomination. So this is a great poll for Bernie Sanders. You're going to see a lot of people tomorrow, especially if Joe Biden wins South Carolina, try to insinuate that Bernie Sanders' momentum is done, that Joe Biden is on the rise, that if all the neoliberals can just work together, they'll defeat Bernie Sanders and maybe they all have to unite behind Joe Biden. But when we see all of this data, it becomes perfectly clear. Bernie Sanders is the odds-on favorite for Super Tuesday, and when you eliminate everyone else from the race, Bernie Sanders is the second choice support for nearly every other major candidate. Bernie's going to win, guys. It doesn't mean we can let our foot off the gas pedal, but it means that we have to remain confident and we have to let people know when they're starting to get a little bit down because of a potential South Carolina loss that we still got this.